I am dreaming for
Yeah.
years of being in this retailer and like they keep saying no, but I need this yes. And then it's like those big rejections, right? Sometimes it's a friend rejecting us. Sometimes it's someone we're totally into that we're dating and then we're like, oh, so they're just not that into us. Those things
Yes.
hurt, like they hurt and they suck and they are devastating. And there's a million nights I cry myself to sleep. But like, so it's hard to do it. But like when I look back at everything, I just know that's true, that our setbacks, no matter how painful they are, really are set up. So like if we're open to uh
If you're open to that.
yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about how do you believe in yourself to transform your life and why self-worth specifically is so important to your personal goals, your business goals, your entire life. Maybe we could start, Jamie, with defining the difference between self-confidence and self-worth.
Woo! That one question, that is like the power question. I'm so excited you asked that because for anybody listening to us, watching us right now, this one thing will literally change like your entire life. And our self-worth is our ceiling. Like our self-worth is our ceiling in every area of our life, our business, our relationships, our goals and dreams. A lot of people think, oh, I just need to get more skill set or more experience or more, confidence, which is different. And all those things are important. But underneath it all, if you don't believe you are worthy of the thing, it will not come. And so,
Hmm.
in life, like we don't become what we want, we become what we believe we're worthy of. And so self worth is literally the one thing that's like the foundation of all of it, that when you learn to build it can impact your business, your goals, your dreams, what you believe is possible for yourself. So I'm so excited. So okay, and to your question, self confidence, while it is so important and so valuable, is actually completely different from self worth. And most of us, I'll just speak for myself, most of my life, I did not realize that I was pursuing all of these things that built self confidence, but arriving at them, not understanding why I still didn't feel like I was enough, or I still felt like something was missing. And I thought the solution was to work harder and achieve more and level up to the next level. And all of that is an important part of growth and building confidence. But none of it builds self worth, which is so important because our self worth is our ceiling. Okay, so let me break it down. I'm really excited about this. So, self confidence, because this is something right now that every single person, every student, every
Yes.
business leader crushing it, does not matter where you're at in your life. When you understand this one thing, it can completely transform your life, like
Yes.
right now. It's a big thing. So, okay, just to kind of get granular for a minute. So, self confidence, while it's internal, it is so much based on the external. So, your self confidence is how you assess your own skills and abilities, your willingness to try and to go for it, how much of the world's definition of success you feel you have, and how you feel you stack up and compare and measure to others. If you're winning or losing at any moment in time, the studies show the boxer who wins the fight is automatically 30% more confident. Our confidence is fragile. It
Hmm.
fluctuates. It rises and falls. Our self worth, on the other hand, is the deep internal knowing and belief that you are worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, not as your past or past mistakes or failures, not as your successes and what's happening all around on the outside, but separate from all of that, just exactly as you are. You're fully enough, worthy of love and belonging. And two big things on this. A lot of people worry, well, okay, let me back up. Self confidence, okay? Every ad that we see growing up and on television and all the things that well intended family members often say, where they're like, how's your job? How's your kids? We learn to believe once I have great answers to those things, then I should feel enough and like I've made it. We learn through ads that, like, oh my gosh, if I get that dream car one day, or the six pack abs, or that certain level in my bank account, or the certain job title, then I'm going to finally feel fulfillment and enough. And just to ask everyone who is, listening with us right now and watching us right now, imagine, like, so many of us are achievers, and especially part of your community, we want to be limitless and all the things, which is so important on our journey to fulfillment. And another piece of that is the self-worth. And so for a lot of us, right, if you think about, if you've ever had a big goal or a dream or a hope and you thought, one day when I finally get that thing, like, then I'm going to feel fulfilled and happy. And for some of us, it may be a certain level in our business, or it might be finally finding a life partner or getting married and having kids, or, a fitness goal. It could be anything. And then a lot of us, we dream like, oh my gosh, one day when I get that job title or that, whatever it might be. And we work really, really hard, often for years. And then when you finally get that thing, that we thought would make us happy and fulfilled, a lot of us arrive at that thing and we're happy for a while. But then before we realize it, we're like, okay, but why am I back to feeling like something's missing, or like this isn't enough, or like I'm not enough? And our answer to that is usually, I just got to work harder. I got to achieve more, get the next thing, the next thing. And it becomes this never ending cycle where we achieve a lot and we grow a lot and we build a lot of confidence in the way, which is along the way, which is really important. But if we don't have underlying self worth, we always arrive at those things feeling empty, feeling like something's missing, and just continuing to hustle harder and harder and harder. And it just goes on forever, because all of those achievements will build self confidence, but none build self worth. And when it comes to self worth, a lot of people think, well, wait a minute, especially ambitious people. They're like, if I believe I'm enough just as I
Yeah.
am I going to lose my ambition? Am I going to lose my edge? And it's like, oh no, when you fully believe you're enough as you are, like, I have found you get more ambitious, because you're now, like, oh, if I go for this thing and fail and fall flat on my face, like, it might shake my confidence for a minute, but it cannot touch my self worth. Like who I am, you become more fearless. And so knowing the difference between the two is huge. And there's a lot of great resources out there on self confidence and on building it, which is, again, so valuable and important. But it is so different from self worth. And Jim, maybe a lot of people like listening with us can relate to this, but I believe for the longest time that if I achieved enough, I would finally feel enough and I'd finally feel fulfilled. And after spending decades of my life achieving a whole bunch of stuff and arriving at it, still going, why does it feel like something's missing? Like, this is never enough. And learning, like, oh, there's a massive difference between self-worth and self-confidence. And self-worth challenges in our lives show up in three ways. So I can dive into that if you want me to. For anyone listening, wondering, like, well, wait a minute. Okay, this is a new concept. And now, do I have issues with self worth? It really can show up three ways in our life.
Yeah. Before we get into the three ways, there's a quote in here, and this is kind of a what you just said was a mic drop. It's something to the tune of, in life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and your dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. Whether it's in your relationships, your careers, your ambitions, you don't rise to what you believe is possible. You fall to what you believe you're worthy of.
How do you believe in yourself, especially in a moment like right now where the future is right in front of you and it is swirling with endings and with beginnings? That's always how I feel in the summer, right? Summer is supposed to be this awesome time where we relax, we dial it down. If you're lucky and you can get to the beach, that's fantastic, or a pool. But when I'm at the beach, you know what I'm thinking about? My freaking future and the endings and the beginnings. And today, I want to throw how you believe in yourself in the middle of all these endings and beginnings. And how do you believe in yourself when you haven't even started taking the actions? How do you believe in yourself when you don't know how this thing is going to turn out that you really want to do? Well, my guest today, she's a super close friend of mine, and she is somebody you want to hear from right now. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about none other than Jamie Kern Lima. She's the founder of It Cosmetics, which she started in her living room. And she sold it to L'Oreal for $1 billion. And here's the thing that I love about Jamie. Jamie is the queen of learning how to believe in yourself. Because When she started It Cosmetics, she was not some influencer with daddy's money. No, 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 no. She didn't get a degree in how to start a company. She was a waitress at Denny's with terrible skin rosacea, like the bright pink kind of breakouts all over her cheeks. And it was that rosacea and that hardworking work ethic from being a Denny's waitress that made her create her own foundation. And that was the beginning of this billion-dollar company that she created in her living room, It Cosmetics. And I know you're going to love hearing from her, which is why I am so excited that you're here to talk to us about your journey. You are one of my favorite human beings of all time. I cannot thank you enough, Jamie, for being here as my friend and for being here as the professor on the topic of purpose and learning how to believe in yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big, warm Mel Robbins podcast welcome to Jamie Kern Lima.
Mel, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun and real and raw, and I can't wait. And I hope it just adds so much value to everyone listening. So I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
There's no question because, you have those friends in your life that you don't see very often.
Mm.
But every time you do, it's like no time has disappeared and you just have this like kind of twinkle on your skin because you just love being with this person. I love you so much, Jamie. I'm actually mad at you that you live so far away from me. So maybe we should just start right there.
I love you. Thank you. I feel the very same way. And one of the things I want to share, I know we're going to dive in deep on purpose. By the way, I love Purpose Professor. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it because it's one of our biggest life questions. How do I find my purpose? But I just want to say, Mel, something really important to me that I didn't want to leave here without saying. You can edit this out if you don't like it, but everybody listening needs to know this. You are one of the rare human beings that is the same off air, behind the scenes, in your everyday life as you are in all the public things. You know what I mean? And you and I have both met so many celebrities and so many people with millions and millions of followers, and it's very rare they're the same. And one of the things I love so much about you is you are even more funny, even more intelligent and brilliant and kind and raw and real in real life. So that congruency is like 1 in a billion. And I love you, and I'm just grateful to be here for you.
Wow. Okay.
Just that.
I think the episode's over now. Now, we got to go back in time because, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because the entire mission of this show is to empower and inspire you listening to us right now to create a better life, whatever that means for you, to take the simple steps that sometimes feel impossible to pursue your dreams, to improve your health, to create greater connections, to believe in yourself. And Jamie truly is not only the professor of purpose, but her life story is a demonstration
Mm.
in cultivating belief in your ideas, belief in your intuition, belief in God, belief that things will turn out. And so I want to go back in time because, I've heard you on the stages that you speak around the world talk about how you started as a waitress in Denny's
Mhm.
and then from waitressing at Denny's pursued a dream that you had of being on television.
Mhm.
And as a fellow former waitress, I would love to start there.
Mm. Yeah, waitress at Denny's, full uniform, name tag to prove
Oh,
it.
I forgot they had uniforms.
Full uniform.
What was your favorite thing on the menu?
Oh gosh, I love the pancakes. You know what? Just like simple. It's so funny how our steps are ordered, I think, in life.
Mm.
And so often, I remember being a waitress at Denny's. I remember feeling, and maybe someone listening to us can relate to this right now. You have this feeling inside of you like there's something more I'm supposed to do, but you don't know what it is yet. And you doubt it might be possible. And I remember being waitress at Denny's and just feeling like I have these big dreams, but not quite knowing like how do I believe I'm worthy of them yet. And it was this big season in my life. At the same time, Mel, the kitchen at the Denny's I worked at was a disaster. Like they would take an hour to get pancakes out.
Hmm.
So I learned to talk to people so that they wouldn't leave. They often did leave, or they'd throw like a dime and a penny on the table and leave.
As your tip, as if it's your fault
Yeah,
that the food were.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
But it's so funny how, years later when I ended up launching my own business, I'm like, oh, I've got to get the operations right or nothing else matters. It's just those little things we learn along the way. But yeah, after that, I thought my whole life I would have a talk show. I watched Oprah in my living room growing up, so I thought for sure I would share other people's stories with the world. So I went into, did all the jobs, saved up all my money to pay for school, and push grocery carts in the grocery parking lot, sliced meat in the deli, all those fun jobs, and then found myself in what I thought was my dream job, working in TV news. And I thought, this is it, right? And what I didn't realize was I was about to enter this huge season of setback in my life,
Mm.
of self doubt. I have a skin condition called rosacea. And for me, it started getting really red, really bumpy. And I would be anchoring the news live, thinking, like, okay, this is it. This is it. And I started hearing in my earpiece from my producer, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You
Oh
need
my
to wipe it
God.
off. You need to. And I was live on television, right? And I would glance down during the commercial break and I saw, oh, the makeup is breaking up on my face and these big red bumps are coming through. And it started this season that felt like setback. But so often in life, the seasons that feel like setbacks are actually setups for what we're called to do.
Okay, stop right there. Did you hear that? The seasons of your life that are setbacks are often setups for what you're called to do. I want to just make sure everybody heard that. And I want to take a highlighter and also highlight something that you said about being a waitress at Denny's. And it's this: you said our steps are ordered.
Mhm.
So, can you explain what that means, particularly to somebody who's listening,
Yeah.
who may feel like, I know I'm meant for something greater.
Yes.
Why the hell am I at this step? And this does not feel like it is like on the path of where I'm supposed to go. So,
Mm,
what do you mean by the fact that our steps are ordered?
yeah. I believe, everything in life
Yep.
is happening for us, even when it doesn't make sense.
Ugh. Can
Um,
we just, what do you mean happening for us?
I
So, to
think,
somebody that's like really in it, Jamie,
yes, yes.
what does that mean?
Let me frame it around our topic of purpose, right?
Okay.
So often people feel empty because they feel like, oh, my purpose needs to be some job. It needs to be my job, or it needs to be this grand thing I haven't figured out yet. But for those of us that have accomplished a goal we always dreamed of, we get to it and we're like, oh, this isn't it, right? It's never, in my opinion, purpose is never this big goal necessarily. Purpose is so often when we're able to serve the person we once were or serve in a way for something we've gone through. And here's what I mean. Uh, I think our purpose can be like, oh, wow, I went through a really freaking hard season in my
Mm,
life. And I now am actually realizing I'm born to be a generational cycle breaker in my
mm,
family.
mm-hmm.
That is an incredible purpose, right? Purpose can be like, oh, I've been having a hard season for a long time. And when I actually just take a minute and say hi to someone else who's lonely, maybe it's like in the coffee line at Starbucks, maybe it's the neighbor down the street, whatever it is, you feel in your gut a sense of fulfillment, like a sense of alignment when you're doing something in your purpose.
Mm.
And I think that the big mistake people make is they think it's this end goal, right? A lot of times when people hear my story and they're here, oh, Denny's waitress builds $1 billion company, they think my purpose was to be some big entrepreneur.
It wasn't?
It wasn't.
What was it?
In the journey of how I did it,
Yeah.
I took this massive risk, right? Taking my makeup off on national television when I was told not to, and being brave enough to be seen and
Mm.
helping other women realize that they're worthy and enough exactly as they are, seeing them as who they are. To me, that is my purpose. And in doing that, it just a byproduct of that with It Cosmetics is we built a company with millions and millions and millions and millions of customers. And what's wild is 5% of our customers actually have skin issues, like I do. 95% don't. It's just that they felt seen and connected with something that spoke to their soul, right? For me, being willing to say, here I am exactly as I am, no makeup, and, all my skin issues. Um, I think people connected with that feeling of, oh, I'm enough exactly as I am.
You know what else I think is a really important part of your story? It is waitressing.
Yeah,
It's pushing carts in a supermarket.
yeah,
It's working in the back house of a restaurant. That's
yes,
my story too. Helping my best friend on her paper route, bussing tables. And I think when you work in retail or you work in a service job
yeah,
and you feel at times invisible,
mm,
you start to realize how important it is to treat everybody with respect and kindness, that
yes,
there is no work that is beneath you. And when you can bring that level of service to the job that you have right now, even if you hate it, even if people treat you like garbage, even if the back of the house is not getting those pancakes out on time and
yes,
people are angry, if you can bring a sense of grace and service and just humility to those roles, I think it changes how you show up when things start working out because you don't ever forget what it's like to be treated like shit
yes.
because somebody was mad that their pancakes weren't out on time.
Yes. Yes. And also, you and I have had this experience where we've truly gotten to see and be almost every type of person in every
Yeah.
type of environment. And so now it's like whether it's me building a business or you building one of the top shows in the world, one of the top shows in the world, I feel part of that was like, oh, we understand who's listening and watching you right
Yes.
now. I
Yes.
understand who real people are who built, who bought my products. And
Yeah.
and so when you mention steps are ordered, it's like, no matter where you are in your life right now, what you're going through, I believe every piece of it, whether it's, oh, someone just, cut me off in a parking lot and screamed at me, or, oh, whatever it might be you're going through, all of those things are happening for you, I
Mm,
believe,
I love
so
that.
that you're amassing this toolbox of understanding and getting strong enough and equipped enough for the purpose you step into.
Amazing. So, Professor of Purpose, Jamie Kern Lima, right there. That's your takeaway number one. The steps are ordered. Believe in that.
Mm,
And this moment is helping you, it's giving you something. So, that
yeah.
is one major tool that you used along the way. Let's go back to that moment because I think you were 28 years old, right?
Hmm.
When you're sitting on television in Seattle.
Yeah.
You are a local news anchor, you're living the dream, you're on your way, and you are now starting to have this nightmare happen
Yes.
where your rosacea is breaking through on camera in front of everybody
Yeah.
the makeup that they put on you.
Yes.
And you've got people in your ear telling you there's something wrong with your face.
Yes.
And you're realizing, holy cow, the makeup that they've put on my face cannot cover the rosacea and the skin issues that I have. So,
Yeah.
what do you do in that moment?
Well, the first thing I did was start freaking out, right? And I like literally I started entering this season of self-doubt where I would be live on the air, anchoring the news, thinking thoughts in my head like, "Oh, am I going to get fired? Are viewers changing the channel right now? Like, am I costing the company ratings?" Right? So it was this
Could you
big.
feel those moments when you could feel like the makeup not kind of like disappearing? Like there were moments when I used to be a commentator for CNN, I was premenopausal, where I could feel the hot flash coming.
Yeah. I didn't feel it until they said it in my ear and in my
Oh.
earpiece. And then what would start to happen was I would get so nervous and stressed
Mm.
out because they kept trying to cover it during commercial breaks. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears.
Oh.
So what I remember is like anchoring the news live, and sometimes you have to be happy, tell this happy story, or you're serious telling. And I just remember my heart beating in my ears, hoping people weren't changing the channel.
Oh
And
my
and
God.
it started this thing where I would spend what it's funny. I was anchoring the news, and people think when you're doing that, you must have all this money, but you really don't get paid much at all. And I
No.
took my little paycheck that I had and started spending it on department store makeup, professional artistry makeup, drugstore makeup. I couldn't find anything that worked. And I had this idea one day, like, oh, if I can't find anything that works for me, there's probably a whole lot of other people out there that feel like makeup doesn't work for them. And it was sort of this idea where I was like, if I could
Mm.
figure out how to make something that worked for me, it helped a whole lot of people. And that was my knowing, or this gut feeling. But then my head, Mel, was like, oh, but you got no money, you got no connections, you know no one in the beauty industry, you're unqualified. So I sat in this place, right? And I just want to, we're talking about purpose. I had this gut feeling like I was supposed to go for this thing, but then my head was like, oh, but here's all the reasons why you're not qualified to do it. Plus, you're in your dream job, right? And I sat between those two. And it wasn't until I had this big aha moment of why I needed to do it that pushed me over the edge.
Okay, so what is the aha moment?
Yeah, so I realized one day, I'm like, this makes no sense. There are thousands of makeup companies out there. How does nothing work for me, right? Then I had this moment where I realized I've never seen a model with bright red bumpy skin saying, selling makeup. Like you always see these photoshopped, airbrushed
Yeah.
models. And I realized, Mel, like, wow, my whole life I've actually loved those beauty commercials, and I love seeing the magazines, and I always aspired to look like them, but deep down inside, they always made me feel like I wasn't enough.
Mm.
And I had this moment. I was literally on the news set when this happened, where I was like, wait a minute. What if it's not just about launching a makeup product? Like what if I could actually figure out how to do it, which I had no idea how, and I had no money. It was like, what if I could actually launch a product that works for me? And what if I actually put real people as models, like every age, shape, size, skin tone, skin challenge? What if I use them as models, call them beautiful, and mean it for every little kid out there who's about to start doubting themselves, and every grown woman who still does, and that deep source of pain from how I was feeling not enough, and what could I do about it? That, in my opinion, is one of the strongest ways to find your purpose. It's what has just destroyed you or hurt you that you've maybe made it through,
Yeah.
and how can you now use that making it through to help someone who's going through it?
Okay. That's like a mic drop moment from our professor of purpose, Jamie Kern Lima. So again, I like to unpack these things to make
Yeah.
sure this is a I always say this is not just a listening podcast, it's a doing podcast. And I want to make sure nobody's left behind.
Yes.
And there was billions of dollars worth of wisdom that you just dropped. And so I want to try to unpack it for anybody that is listening to this and you have this sense that you're made for more. So
Yes.
one of the things that I heard is look in your life and see what problems or frustrations or things that you're struggling with that feel like a setback. And Jamie gave you the example of the rosacea on her skin and her inability to find something that actually could help her solve this issue of being able to cover it up so that she could do her dream job. And that setback is a setup for something new. And then get out of your own sort of selfish or self loathing or the self excuses and the self pity and remind yourself that there are 8 billion people on this planet now. There are other people that are dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that if you can figure out how to put your energy into making this better for yourself and you bring other people into the fold with you, you now have something that's worth working on
Mm.
because it helps you and it's going to help other people. And I also want to point something out that Jamie will not tell you, but I sure as hell will. And that is that this was about 14 or 15 years ago. So we're talking 2007, 2008, correct?
Mhm.
In my opinion, Jamie Kern Lima is the reason why we have this real beauty movement. There always has to be the first person,
Mm.
and she was it. So when you look around the internet and social media and you see people doing naked faces, that was not something people did in 2007. It was all airbrush. It was all perfection. That was the beauty standard. There were no plus size or curvy models. That was
Mhm.
not a thing back then. And so you've got a woman who is sitting in Seattle, who has no experience and no money, deciding that she is going to not only figure out how to create a makeup line for people who have issues with their skin, but that she's going to do something nobody has ever done, which is put real, normal people like you and me into her campaigns when she finally gets this figured out. And she's going to show people what her skin actually looks like in order to sell it. I mean, that was a revolutionary idea. She was the first. And I'm telling you this because you could be the first. You have something inside of you that is a problem, something that you can solve. And you could be the first to change the way that people think about an issue. And so, Jamie, let's pick up the story because how do you go from this aha moment, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to doing something? Because I
Yes.
think some of us have aha moments, right?
Yep. And then we
But we
doubt
don't
him.
do anything.
Yes, because we doubt him. We
Yes.
doubt him. We think like, "Oh, someone's already done it,"
Yes.
or, "Oh, whatever." First of all, if you're out there right now and you think, "Oh, you have an idea or a way you wanna show up in the world or someone else you wanna help, but you think, 'Oh, someone's already done it.'" Literally, there's only one of you in the entire universe, which by definition means no one has ever done it the way you're gonna do it. So,
Mm.
when I launched this
Say that again, Jamie, for the people that are like, whoa, 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 kids, calm down. Wait, Jamie just said something. I was doing my dishes. Say that again. Talk about the fact that this matters.
This is huge because I think the biggest reason we talk ourselves out of things is we think, "Oh, someone's already done it.
Yes.
Someone's already done it before, who must be smarter than me or more talented or more whatever it is than me." And what I have learned and then proven, and I want to tell you too about all I'm going to get so excited, Mel, because no, when you do this thing, like don't be shocked then when there's millions and millions of rejections and people don't get it, right? Because it's never been done before, right?
Oh,
Because
yes.
there's only one of you. There's only one of you doing it the way you're gonna do it. But just to recap that, there is literally only one of you in the entire universe, right? And so if you are gonna show up to this world authentic, that means whatever you do, if it's authentic to you, it's actually by definition, it's never been done before,
Hmm.
right? And so when you show up that way, don't be surprised if not everyone gets it right away. Or, in my case, all the experts I put on pedestals all said no. That this idea of how I wanted to connect with women, they thought it wouldn't work and they thought I wouldn't therefore make them any money.
So, but can I ask you a question
Yeah,
real quick? How did you go from the aha
yes,
to starting? So, what did
yes,
that look like? Like, because I
yep,
think, like, if you're in this space where, let's just use an example. You've never actually, you don't know the first, you have this thing about catering that you
yep,
just can't get it out of your head. You want to do these events, you've never actually done this because you had never
yes,
done anything with makeup. You had
yep,
no idea what you were doing.
yep.
You have an idea and you have an aha moment.
Hmm.
What was the first thing that you did to start to make this real?
So leaning on that, why I had to do it and why
Mhm.
it felt like it was going to be part of my purpose was a
Mhm.
big thing that helped me actually take the risk, quit my job.
Wait, you
And
quit your job because you had an aha moment?
yeah, it was deep. I was like, if I had
What did it
all,
feel like?
it felt like if I didn't do it, I would wake up the rest of my life with this pain in my gut, this longing knowing I was created for more. It felt like if I didn't do it, I would have the pain of regret. And
Mm.
if I did do it, I might have the pain of failure and maybe the pain of embarrassment and then maybe the pain of, oh, wow, that doesn't feel like it went how I thought it was. I knew it was this big risk. I
Yeah.
knew I was leaving what I thought was my dream job.
Why did you have to
Um,
quit your job? Just curious.
it was literally from day one, I was all in. Like it was, I dove all in. I knew if I was going to do this, I needed to just go all in on it. I started, I do not recommend this, but I started working like 100-hour weeks from the beginning. I was so freaking passionate about it. Like I couldn't stop thinking about what if. I can actually figure this out? What if I can literally, because it became a
So
big
did you have
dream,
any savings? Like, do you have a little bit of
very
savings?
little
Because you didn't
savings.
pay yourself for the first 3 years that you did this.
First 3 years. So basically, my husband and I wrote this business plan, right?
Yep.
Quit our jobs, dove all in our living room. We poured all of our savings into it. I thought, Mel, and this is for someone watching us right now. I know this. I thought if I can figure the product out, it's going to be huge.
Right.
And then I realized, like, oh, being an entrepreneur or launching a dream is not always that easy. We put every penny we had into it, and once we actually created a product, and we were scrappy. If you
And
want to
how
know
did you
how,
create a product? Like, are you in your
yeah.
kitchen buying stuff at the grocery store, or how does this even work?
Okay, so no, so so first, I love that, technology is right there, right? So researching how are makeup formulations made, who makes them, what are the FDA regulatory compliance, all the unsexy stuff I know nothing about, just diving into the research phase of how does this happen. And then what I learned is that manufacturers are makeup companies' closest held secrets, right? Like closest held secrets. They won't disclose who they work with, but a
Hmm.
lot of these big manufacturers work with all the top brands that you see or a handful of them.
Gotcha.
So I
So
started,
so are you saying that all of the brands and top brands that you see are basically manufactured by a handful of companies?
yes,
Okay,
handful of
got it.
companies, and then some do it in-house as well.
Gotcha.
So what I did was scrappy. I walked into a Sephora, I wrote down the name of every single brand in there, went home. I had no money, right? Cold call every single brand and saying like, "Oh, I'm looking for a really great manufacturer. Could you let me know who you manufacture?" And then they hang up on me. You know what I mean? One after another, after another, after another. And I got this really small brand in a totally different kind of positioning where the girl who answered said, "Oh, here's who we use. They're in New York City, blah, blah, blah." So that was my first manufacturer. Reached out to them, had a meeting in person, had no money, poured this idea out to them. They took a risk making me samples. And that's how it started, was just really being scrappy, and trying to figure it out. All of our money had went into the product development formula and the
Yep.
advisory board of the product.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, now we have a product that works for me, right? This was after hundreds of formula iterations. I thought that was going to be it.
So is this like year 1 or year 2? Like, how long did this take?
Yeah, it took a good first year to get
Okay.
that product. And then what I started doing was sending it to everyone I thought was just going to believe in me instantly. So I sent it to Sephora and Ulta Beauty and all the department stores and all of the online retailers, QVC, which is, live television shopping channel. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be huge. Every single one of them said no after no after no after no. And to your point, it became 3 years of not being able to pay myself, 3 years of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of no's, of crying myself to sleep at night.
Were you and your
Um,
husband, like, fighting like crazy? Like, "You should go back to work. You should," but why do we do that? Like, were you, like, doing
you
that?
you wanna know what it was? We
Yeah.
still believed in it, but we weren't sure how we were gonna make it. It was, like, friends and family that were like, wait, you quit your job? Are you sure you shoulda quit your job?" Or, "Wait, you still haven't made any money? Like, it's been 3 years," right? So you hear all of this, the voices get so loud.
Yeah.
The loudest, though, were my own self-doubt. Sometimes we take a chance and go for something because our gut is telling us to do it, and then all of a sudden you face all this opposition and you start to question, is my gut wrong? Is my knowing wrong? And there were so many times where I would literally get this another brutal no from, Sephora or QVC or whoever it was, and I would just literally cry myself to sleep. I would pray about it and be like, God, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, but nothing is going right.
Yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. So, and I've really been, it's funny because we have like mutual friends and stuff, but like they're really new in my life because for almost a decade, like all I did was
Yeah.
like work and like trying to build the company, you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
um, that's why seeing that pajama party, I was like, I've got to go. Like, I want
Well,
to be around girlfriends. Like, I need to get a life because for a long time I didn't have one. So,
it's hard to have one when you're doing when you do what you did to that level. And then, I mean, people think it's like, people are overnight successes, but
yeah,
you're a testament to, well, that is not the case. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to have a social life and go to pajama parties when you are, you're building and grinding and hustling to create what you created. And it's funny because I'm not a makeup person by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I, even I knew what It Cosmetics was, because you guys
Mhm.
have a concealer
Yes.
and a BB cream, or is it a CC? I
Yeah.
can't
CC,
remember.
yeah. Uh-huh. Is it
That
CC?
that is it a CC cream that
Uh-huh.
I use? Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. And, I think part of it, because like, growing up, like I didn't see any type of business, like monetary success, any stuff like that
Yeah.
around me. My parents worked super hard. Um, but my journey was really different. Like I worked as a Denny's waitress and
I saw.
yeah, and like pushed grocery carts in the Safeway parking lot and all those things, like and trying to pay my way through school and stuff like that. And I always kind of like had this like gut feeling like, okay, like I'm meant to serve or give or something. Like I'm meant to do more than like what I'm doing right now and where I'm at. And it's been a decade of like literally starting with close to nothing. And then, when I launched this idea, this kind of dream, I had no idea how hard it would be. Like the first 3 years of the business was like hundreds of no's, like tons of rejection, some of it really brutal. And I think so many people like have a dream and then they're like, oh, and then once you go after it, you're like, oh, this isn't happening like I thought it was going to happen. And there's like
Right.
no proof around me that it's actually a good idea. And like, what was I thinking? And did I list like, is my gut wrong? And it was really this crazy journey in so many ways of where it started to then building it into a $1 billion business. And the thing when I, over the years, and really why I wrote this book, my first ever book, is really because, and it's by the way, it's such a big week right now, launch week of the book. I'm excited to share it with you and your whole community and everything. But this book is really like, oh gosh, I've noticed that you always see, like when you Google, right? You see the headlines like, oh, struggling waitress sells $1 billion company. And I get so many DMs on Instagram from women, especially saying like, oh, like, how did you do it? Did you just get lucky? Or like, did you all these things? And I'm like, oh, wow. It made me realize that so often, like, we don't ever see the story behind the story of stuff. And when we don't see that, then it's like when we go through our own setbacks and our own struggles, it's like we feel alone in them, or like it must be us, or maybe we're not the kind of person that success happens to, or whatever. And just seeing really DMs on Instagram and just getting these questions over the years, I'm like, you know what? Like, I had this moment where I realized I'm actually for the first time ever like gonna share like everything that really happened. And the book, believe it, is a story, really my story of going from a girl who didn't believe in herself to believing in herself, and like not trusting herself to like learning how to trust herself, doubting that she's enough, to like learning to believe she's enough. And what really inspired me to write it was like, oh, yeah, it's my story, but it's also the story of so many other women and people out there right now who are like, who have this like feeling like they're made for more, or they have a
Mhm.
feeling like they have more to give, or whether it's like launch the podcast, or start painting again, or like write the first chapter of the book, or join a dance class, whatever it is. Like they know inside they're created for more, but like they doubt themselves anyway. And when I think back on my whole journey, like why I wanted to write this book really is for every person out there who really is dealing with doubt in their own head, whether it comes from their own head or from like the people around them, like other people's
Mhm.
opinions, or just the simple fact that they're trying their dream and they're trying to build their business, or they're trying to, get clients for their dance studio, whatever it is. And like the success around them isn't happening right now. And it's like, how do you know?
how do you learn to hear your own gut and trust it? How do you learn to like break through all the noise of self-doubt and really learn to believe you are enough and to step into all that you are and all that you're called to be. And I think that so many people give up or stay in their comfort zone and never actually become the person they're created to be because of so many reasons, right? And it's why so many people quit. And so anyhow, this book is really for every person just on their journey who wants like all the tips and lessons of how to do that. And I really share like so many personal and professional
Yeah.
stories, right, of learning to do that. And then I also share the stuff I still am struggling with, which is still a work in progress. And it's just raw and emotional and vulnerable. And honestly, I'm scared because I'm used to like, let me give a CEO talk in the boardroom. And this is like, oh no, this is the real shit. This is the real stories behind the stories that are really personal. But my prayer is just that it's not about me. And I'm donating the book. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds of the book. Like I'm not doing, literally the only reason I'm doing this book is because for me, it's the best, I think, best work I've ever done in my life. And that I know it's not about me. My prayer is just that it helps every single person out there on their own journey of knowing they're enough and stepping into all of who they are. So that was a long answer,
Wow.
but a
That was a lot,
real
but a
answer.
good one. I mean, you gave me a lot of good little nuggets to go with there.
Hmm.
First of all, where is the proceeds? Do you have a charity that you're going to be giving the?
Two of them, but one of the big ones too is Feeding America.
Mm.
Because right now, I mean, wow, what a year it's been for so many of us.
Yeah.
And there's tens of millions of families now that are food insecure, and we're going to have a vaccine, but we're still going to go through a really tough season. And they're saying it could go, well into 2021. And I think that right now, I think it's like the last number I read was 17 million kids are food insecure just in our country right now. So that's a big one. And by the way,
Food.
I was a Denny's waitress. I know how to serve food. So now I'm just gonna donate a lot of food.
I saw that. I think I also saw that you said something like you were at Denny's, but you lost the job because you talked too much and gave away too much free food.
Oh my gosh. Well, here, you know what's funny? Okay, this is the funny thing is I don't know if I would love to hear too if you feel the same way. But I think so many times in our lives, like the setbacks we go through end up being like setups for like actually things we're supposed to do next or walk into next. And when I think about Denny's, so so the Denny's I worked at, which was in Pullman, Washington, had massive operational issues. Sometimes it would take like an hour for the pancakes to come out, and people
Oh,
would get mad, right? So some people would leave, and then some people would stay, but then they wouldn't tip me. And I'm like, I have nothing to do with the pancake timing. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so what's funny is, and I'm like kind of an introvert normally, and that job, I was like, dude, I'm trying to pay my way through school. Like I can barely afford my tuition, my bills. I'm like, I've got to get tips. And so I learned to talk, and
Yeah.
like, just talk to people and
To kind of get them kind of like
it just,
okay with the wait.
yes, because it was the longest wait for the pancakes to come out. Anyways, I eventually, got fired for talking too much. But I believe, and by the way, the cool thing that came out of it was like, I didn't know it at the time. I never knew one day I'd start a business or anything, but I had this lesson ingrained in me that like, oh, if your operations aren't right,
Yeah,
it can
yeah.
impact everything else. And I remember, and like for a lot of us, when we launch a business or a dream or whatever, we want to do the thing we love, but we don't want to handle the operations. We don't want to, and I just remember that lesson. And I remember when we created It Cosmetics, I'm like, okay, we've got to figure out the operational infrastructure, because if that's not there, it's like everything else collapses, even though operational infrastructure is not my passion. But I thank Denny's for that lesson.
For that first lesson. And
Yeah.
it's 100% true. I always say that too. I feel like so many times when things were disappointments, it ends up working. It does end up there. Like a kind of like a silver lining does happen, or another opportunity arises that you never even knew existed because of that setback.
Yeah.
Um, and it's again a very important real. It's a really important life lesson, or like an important thing to remember in those darker times when things are not working.
And it's
But
hard, right? Because when you're in
it's
that dark moment, like I can think of so many major no's in my journey of building the company where I thought like, oh my gosh, everything's on the line. I need this investor to say yes because I don't know how I'm going to make it if he doesn't. Or I am dreaming for
yeah,
years of being in this retailer and like they keep saying no, but I need this yes. And then it's like those big rejections, right? Sometimes it's a friend rejecting us. Sometimes it's someone we're totally into that we're dating and then we're like, oh, so they're just not that into us. Those things
yes,
hurt, like they hurt and they suck and they are devastating and there's a million nights I cry myself to sleep, but like so it's hard to do it, but like when I look back at everything, I just know that's true, that our setbacks, no matter how painful they are, really are set up. So like if we're open to uh
if you're open to that.
yeah,
And open to seeing the other opportunities
yeah.
or the windows that are opening when the door slams on your face, right?
Yeah. Yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
eh, so a couple of different things again that you were saying. Number one, that you were, and you open with this in your book, and I've heard you talk about this, is that you very much trust your intuition and your gut, and it's more that to and that really, if you can give anyone, I saw you say this in the, you said this in the book. Your gut and intuition is more important than other people's advice, which I'm a strong believer in, right? But it's very difficult for some people to do that, right? Because of that self-doubt, because of that fear. How did you kind of hone that skill of really listening to your gut?
Yeah.
Like, was there like a tip, a moment in your life, or like some kind of turning point when you kind of decided to kind of go that way, or explain that?
Yeah, I think that it's for every person. I think it's a journey, and I think a lot of people don't start the journey. I think that I
Hmm.
believe we all have an intuition, like an inner knowing. And I think what happens for so many of us is that, to your point, the noise of self-doubt is in our own head. We have other people's opinions all around us. We have experts who like are credible and touted visionaries like saying how stuff should be done, right? In some cases. And there's so much. We turn on the news and people are fighting. We have like there's so much everywhere that it ends up being so noisy that we almost like can't even hear our own gut anymore. And a lot of people never ever really just develop that ability to just get still and hear it. And a lot of people have heard it in the past, but like it's been a long time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or they think they heard it and it turns out to be wrong. And then they start doubting themselves. So for me, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. And one of the big things is when I look back, because there are so many times where I doubted my gut and I was like, oh, you know what? Like they're experts for a reason, or this person's had so much success. Let me just listen to them, even though it's like not quite sitting right with me. And when I look back at a lot of the mistakes I made, they were all really around times when I went against
Hmm.
my own gut. And so it's really a thing I think we develop over time, really by paying attention. And I think we're all born with it though. I think we have it. And then I think our life lessons build on it. But it's like sometimes it's simple. It's like we date a dude and we're like, oh, he's sketchy, but we don't want to believe it.
Yeah,
And we're like,
exactly.
oh, maybe his phone did break. And
Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
maybe he just fell asleep last night and I couldn't get a hold of him. He didn't disappear. He wasn't at somewhere else. Like, right. And we kind of know and
We
we
know.
choose, right? We know and we
Yeah.
choose not to. And I think that carries through our whole life. And, for me, getting still, it's a practice. It's a journey, but getting still, even 5 minutes a day. And that's hard. A lot of people try to get still, whether it's to meditate or in prayer, whatever it is. But when you try to get still for 5 minutes, no phone, no anything. Like sometimes I just go in the closet because I have two little ones. Look at
Yeah.
go in the
No, me
closet,
too. I know. I do that
right?
all the time.
Yeah, and I just literally try to get still, and I'm not perfect at it because I try to hear my gut. And sometimes I end up thinking of my to-do list or whatever else is going on, but I really work on it to tune into that. And when I look back, there's oh gosh, so many stories that I share in this book I've never shared before. And but one of the most powerful lessons in my entire career and my life came down to a moment when we got one shot on QVC. And what had happened is, we'd been building
Yeah.
from our living room for 3 years and hearing no from everybody. And QVC said no several times. And one day I got their head guy, Alan Burke, who'd built this $1 billion beauty empire on the phone. And I thought for sure if he's going to give me a few seconds of his time, it's going to be a yes. And I
Well,
was
how did you get him on the phone? How did you get him on the phone first?
yeah, by obsessively sending products for 2.5 years.
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I would go on LinkedIn and send messages to any person that worked at QVC. It didn't matter to me what their job title was. And I try to send them products
Good.
if I could get them.
Yeah.
And I finally begged his assistant to just set up a call with me. Like, could you just get him to review the product? So it was a lot of that. and
I thought you were going to say that, what I thought was super clever before you even tell me tell everyone the QVC story, which I think is a very poignant point in your career or in at it for It Cosmetics.
yeah,
You called that, was it Marie at
yeah,
itcosmetics.com?
yeah.
That's your middle name. And you use that as you pretend that was your PR person, which is so scrappy, so clever and gritty. I
Yes.
loved it. I highlighted it like really, really
I
strong. I'm
love
like,
that you have a highlighter in your hand right now. I'm like so
oh,
excited. I
I know.
love it.
This is my best friend, by the way. This is
Love
like,
it.
this highlighter lives with me.
You
Uh,
know what? So the Marie story, like, here's the
that's
thing.
amazing.
I was like, let me just share all of it because I don't want people to just go, oh, that's great. These kind of things happen to other people, but like for me, I can't afford to hire anyone or whatever, right? But we all go through that. And so like I share so many stories of like how did I figure this out with no money or no connections or whatever. And it's like sometimes you
Yes.
gotta do what you gotta do because I couldn't afford to hire anybody, right? My husband and I, we wrote the business plan on our honeymoon flight and, both quit our jobs and thought, oh, we'll take our small amount of savings, pour it into making the best product ever, hiring an advisory board, and then the product is going to sell. And then I didn't realize, oh, it's not that easy, and didn't realize it would be 3 years before I could afford to pay myself. And so, in those early years, like I couldn't afford to hire people who knew what they were doing in like
Right.
all these areas. And so, you figured out that, I mean, I would Google like everything, FDA regulatory compliance and how to write the labels on the packaging and like just everything. And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, my name's Jamie Marie Kern Lima. And so Marie, which is my middle name, got her own email address, right? Marie at itcosmetics.com. And she became head of PR, head of customer service. Like she was a hustler. And so
Yeah.
she would like email, the Today Show, Good Morning America,
Yeah.
and be like, great news. Our founder, Jamie Kern Lima, is available for an
I love
interview.
it.
And and we're launching a new product. Like, and just like,
So
so
cool.
Marie was a hustler. And Marie got just as many no's, a lot more ignores, but she hustled and she got some press. She got some
Good
press.
for her.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Listen, it's like, the journey, it's hard. And I feel like these stories and so many of the stories I share in the book, I feel like they're so important to share because now we're sitting in this world where we like see everything on social media. And a lot of times people, whether they want to, write a book or maybe they have an idea for a business or a product or something, but they're like, oh, they see everyone on social media, like, oh, everyone's already done my idea and
Hmm.
it looks so good, like it's working so well for them. And then they talk themselves out of their own purpose and their own calling and their own truth, right? And I think like what's so important is like, oh, just because you see in my case, if you Google, you see like, oh, $1 billion success story, whatever. It's like, oh, no, no, no. Like, here's what really happened. And if someone's listening right now and they're going through a season of rejection and a season of disappointment and a season of setbacks, I just feel like it is so important to know that when we go through those, we're not alone. And it's no indication of the potential of your idea or your
Right.
success or your dream or your calling. It's like, oh no, like we're all in this together. This stuff happens to almost all of us, and here's the things I did that helped me not quit and helped me keep going and helped me believe even when other people didn't. And so and yeah, and one of my biggest only if you want me to share it, but the biggest one of the biggest lessons on just trusting your own gut versus what
I want you to talk about that. That's a huge the QVC story.
yeah,
That to me was like a major pivotal moment in your entire career. So
yeah,
I just wanted to hear first I want you to tell whoever who's listening,
yeah,
how did you finally, because it wasn't like this was your first time contacting QVC. It was many, many times. It was no, no, no.
yeah,
You already were told no by Sephora and by private equity people who were rude to
yeah.
you. And I
Oh
want,
yeah, and your question about getting a hold of that guy.
yeah, how did you finally get in touch with them?
When we finally got through, his assistant finally set up a call. I thought for sure. I was like, oh my gosh, Alan Burke is getting on the phone with me. Like, this is gonna be like, I was freaking out, like pacing my office, which was our living room. And I was and and I remember when we finally got on the phone call and he's like, hello, Jamie, this is Alan Burke from QVC. And I'm like, okay, I'm like trying to tell myself like they'd be lucky to have us. I'm like, hi, Alan. It's Jamie. Like, nice to meet you. And he was so kind and awesome and all those things. And he said, listen, we've reviewed your products with all the buyers here, and it's unanimous. It's a no. You're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. And I'm like, oh, but I am the right fit. And let me tell you why. And like, I just tried again and poured my heart out, and it was a no. And so I thanked him for his time, and like literally tears are streaming down my face because I didn't know at this point, we're a few years in, like, how are we going to make it? And that day I remember like going to bed, crying myself to sleep. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen where you like get really bad news and then you go to bed and then you wake up the next morning and you hoped it was a dream.
Yes, of course,
And
happens all the time.
yeah. And then it's like, oh, it wasn't. And it was like, that was what it was like for 3 days in a row. And anyhow, we had a season of several years of no's from everybody. The QVC, and by the way, QVC was my dream because my whole life, for like similar to so many of us, I had always seen magazines and commercials on TV with these models that had perfect skin and all these things. And I remember growing up, seeing all of them and going, oh, I want to aspire to look like that. But then always somehow also feeling like I wasn't enough when I saw them. And I didn't put this all together until my journey of getting rosacea on my cheeks, which is hereditary skin
Yeah.
condition, and trying everything I could get my hands on and none of it working, and making that decision that you know what, I'm gonna quit my job as a journalist. And my whole life I've dreamed of being a talk show host, and that I love other people's stories, like not mine, other people's stories. And I thought I was gonna do that my whole career. And when I had this moment, like, oh, my gut just kept telling me, like, nothing's working for you. There must be so many other people out there like you who maybe have skin challenges or whatever, and they just like given up on makeup altogether, or, whatever. And I just that feeling, I knew I needed to do it. And so anyhow, so part of my whole mission from the very beginning was to not just create a product that worked for me and that helped other people, but to create a beauty company where like all the models I use and call beautiful models and mean it are every age and every size and every skin tone and every skin challenge. And I wanted to shift culture in the beauty industry around inclusivity. So I had this dream of QVC for that reason, because it's live. It's live 24/7 television to 100 million homes. And I was like, oh, I can go on and like take my makeup off, show my bright red rosacea, and show for real how the product works, not in a magazine or TV ad where
you don't even know if they're wearing the product. You know what I mean?
Right.
And let me put like real women of every age and size and, you know, skin challenge and really try to shift clothes. So I dreamed of QVC. I just felt it in my gut that I was supposed to be on QVC. And so to get Alan Burke on the phone and to have him tell me, you're not the right fit for our customers or for QVC was devastating. And, you know, and it's hard. And it was one of those moments for me where I had to figure out how to turn down the volume, in this case, on his opinion,
Yeah.
and like try to just turn up the volume of my own gut that said, okay, because every time I would check in with my gut and I would hear it, it's like, you're on the right track. You're supposed to be doing this. And I'm like, is my gut wrong? Because no one else is believing in it. The experts that have done incredible things aren't believing in it, right? And those are the tough moments. And I think those are the moments that make people give up, that make people quit, that make people talk themselves out of their own dreams and their own truth and never step into all that they were created to be, because it's so easy and it makes so much sense in our heads to trust the people who are experts who are telling us how
Right.
to do it. So anyways, it was a moment where, and I did a lot of things wrong in my journey. And I talk about so many of those in the book too, but this was one of the things I did right, where I was like, you know what, my gut is telling me to keep going. And I did. And we eventually were at a big beauty expo, and a QVC host came up to the booth. There were 6,000 women there, and I was demonstrating our product, and she loved our product, and something, you know, she had this feeling to come up to me and to try and give me a shot. And long story short, we got one shot on QVC, and this is where one of the biggest life lessons and business lessons in terms of trusting your gut over, you know, experts or anyone else, happened. And so we had one shot and 10 minutes on QVC. And here's the thing is it's a consignment deal in beauty, which what this meant. And by the way, we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website at the time. And I didn't know how we were going to make it. Like had no idea how we weren't going to go bankrupt. And we got this shot on QVC, but they ordered 6,000. We had to sell over 6,000 units of Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer
Yeah.
in this 10-minute window in order to hit their sales goal or not come back. And I was like, okay, but the challenge was we had to pay for it, manufacture, and ship it all into them. And then if it didn't sell in that 10 minutes, we had to take it all back and not be paid for it. So everything was on the line. We didn't even have the money to do this. So we applied for SBA loans, and the first 22 banks said no, and bank number 23 said yes. And we got enough money just to cover the purchase order.
Because that can bankrupt a company as well.
Oh,
People don't understand.
2 seconds into
Yeah.
absolutely. And, you know, for entrepreneurs and you should never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose ever. And we couldn't afford to lose this one, but we also had almost like run out of options. Like it was like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to just go all in. And so knowing this and knowing it came down to this one shot on live TV in 10 minutes, we hired these third-party consultants, and all of them told me the same thing. And by the way, they're great, and they help so many people sell well on television, and all those things. They know what they're doing. And we worked with them, and they all told me the same thing. They're like, okay, if you want to have a chance, if you want to have a shot, because most people, when they launch on QVC, it's like one time, they never come back. It's really hard,
Oh, I know.
right?
People don't even understand those statistics. I mean, it's very, very rare that people have the story that you had, right? Where you just sell out, whatever. But we'll get to that in a second. But and that's when like companies like die on the vine right in that moment.
Yes. And I've
Yeah.
seen it happen so many times too live, and it's the most
Oh.
devastating thing. And because it's everyone's dream, you know,
Mhm.
and to get one shot is even that part. I mean, so for us, it was 3 years of hustling and trying, you know, getting no's. And so we got this one shot. And when we hired these experts, they all told me the exact same thing, which is, you know, if you want to have a shot at success, here's what you need to do. You need to use these type of models, which were the same
Mhm.
type of models I'd seen in commercials my whole life that
Right.
made me feel like I wasn't enough. And, you know, this age, this, you know, all those things, and do your sell this way. And I would argue with them and say, okay, but like,
if I'm sitting at home watching this, right? And let's say I'm 75 years old and I'm, have hyperpigmentation, whatever it is.
Mhm.
If I don't see anyone that looks like me, instead I see someone who looks like they're 12 with pop, like, how do I know it's going to work for me? Like,
Right.
right. And I'd be like, and listen, I'm going to take my own makeup off and show my rosacea on national TV. And they're mortified. And I'm like, because if I were at home and I had rosacea too, I'd want to know, what is the product going to do? What does it really work? Like all those things. And it was so tough because they're like, listen, and they wanted the best for me. They were telling me the very best advice they knew. And I learned a huge lesson, which, by the way, this applies to everyone, no matter what situation you are in life. When other people, even experts, even friends, even loved ones, when they're giving you their advice and their opinion, they can mean so well, but they are only capable of giving it to you through their own lens,
Lens.
right? Of limitation,
Mhm.
their own lens of experience. And the other thing I've learned too, especially when it comes to experts, is even people that are like considered visionaries, and they are in so many ways, if you're doing anything that is new or novel or different, and even if you're doing something that's already been done a million times, but it's you doing it authentically, which means it's a different take on it, right? So by definition, it's new.
Mhm.
Anytime you do something new, most likely experts aren't going to believe it's going to be successful, and they're not going to know they're doing this, but like subconsciously, they've never seen proof that it is going to be successful because it's never been done before. And so, like, had I learned that lesson earlier, I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep when so many of them didn't believe that this new way of doing a beauty company would work. And so, anyhow, there I was with one shot in front of me, a 10-minute window to either literally change my whole future or go bankrupt, which would also change my whole future.
Yeah, right.
And it felt like way too heavy for me to handle. And I flew out to QVC a week before our one shot on air. And I had this rental car and I sat in the parking lot all alone of QVC, just staring at the front door, watching people go in and out all day. I don't know why I parked there, but anyways, I was just there. And
Why? Why did you go a week early?
it was so heavy for me that first of all, I got there and I started going, okay, I once heard Olympic athletes visualize themselves landing the triple axel or
Yeah.
standing on the podium. I'm like, I'm going to try that. So I sat in that car and I was like envisioning the sold out sign coming up on the screen. I was envisioning real women. I sat there, I prayed, I cried. It felt so heavy. At one point I asked God to take it from me because I couldn't handle the pressure, and I wasn't scared for television. I just knew that this one shot was either going to, I was
Make or break.
exactly. When I would watch people go in and out of the doors, I was like, okay, the next time I walk through those doors, when I walk back out, it's either going to be life changing or it's going to be, devastating. And I also just needed that time to really know what to do, because it's really hard when everyone else is saying one thing and our gut's like, oh no, but that's not authentic to why you're doing what you're doing. But like, I didn't have a chance to try it both ways. And I just remember sitting in that car trying to decide, okay, do I cast all the models they're telling me to have a shot at success? Or do I like risk it all and take my makeup off and show real women of all shapes and ages and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges? And I just sat there like, and I knew what to do, but like, it's so hard when our mind tells us one thing and our
Mhm.
heart and our gut is telling us another thing. And at one
Absolutely.
right? And at one point I
Mhm.
just sat there in the car and I had this moment where I was imagining who she is watching. And, I think of so many different types of women. And the one that just would always jump out at me is like, I would imagine, for some reason, I don't know why, a single mom in Nebraska, like folding laundry, who is too busy to remember that she matters and that she's beautiful and that she's worth it, all those things. And I had this moment in that car where I was like, you know what? I would rather if she's going to give me 5 seconds of her precious time to see me on QVC in the background of whatever she's doing,
I would rather have her glance up on that television, not buy anything, and see me standing there showing women that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it. I'd rather do that than like sell a shitload of product and stand for nothing. You know what I mean? It was that moment
Yeah.
where it's like I knew what I had to do, but sometimes we know and it's not easy.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. And then we acquiesce to who the expert is or who the person is we're supposed to listen to.
yeah.
And you didn't.
Well, and it was, I remember the moment. So the count, so I was standing there, I'm in the studio, we're about to go live, and they have this big countdown clock, right? And it's at 10 minutes. And I just remember all of a sudden the cameras turn on and you see the on-air thing go on. And I was freaking shaking like a leaf. And I'm not nervous for TV. Like that's what I did for my
Yes, you do for
career.
a living.
Yeah, it was all the pressure. And
Yes, of
and and
course.
I was like, and then I saw the clock go 9:59, 9:58, 9:57. I was like, oh, and you can't try to sell or nothing sells. You can't freak out or nothing sells. But
Yes.
inside, I'm like, okay, like this is bigger than me. I can't get in my own head. My dress was too tight that day. It was a whole. Anyways, I was like, I cannot get in my own head. And I just remember like the show. I remember the moment they pulled my bare face before a shot on national television, and I just remember this whole thing. And then I went over to all of our models who are all different ages, shapes, sizes, everything, skin tones, skin challenges, and I all of a sudden I remember we were at. And by the way, if you're not doing well, let's say you're like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minutes into your 10-minute segment,
Yeah.
if you're not doing well, they know by the second if sales are happening. So your clock jumps down to 2 minutes, and you know in your head, or 1 minute, you're like, oh, I just lost a product, or I just lost this much money, right? Because they don't mess around. It's like, and
So they don't even necessarily give you the whole 10 minutes.
exactly
So they
right.
know really quickly on if you're
Yeah.
gonna, like, even
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you think about like Target or Walmart, like you
Oh,
get shelf space, and if you don't
yeah,
do well, you lose your shelf space, right?
yeah.
And the
Don't you
difference,
spend money on those shelf spaces, don't you? Don't
oh
you spend
yeah,
money on the yeah.
probably yeah, but like with QVC, it's the same thing. It's just business, but it's more immediate, literally
Oh,
right then and there. So all this pressure's on, and I just remember praying that my clock did not jump down, right? And it's like all the minutes were going by, and then I was showing, all of our real women, all the models, and then I remember there was about a minute left, and the host is like, the deep shade is almost sold out. The tan shade is almost gone. And I'm like, and then I remember literally there was 1 minute, or no, 1 second left, and the sold out sign came up across the screen, and I was like, and literally these tears started streaming down my face. They cut and went right on to the next studio, whatever item was next, a Dyson vacuum or something, I don't remember. And then all of a sudden I was just like sobbing hysterically, and then my husband came rushing through the double doors of the studio, and I was like, real women have spoken, and he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like,
oh my
oh.
god.
And it was this crazy story. And, that one airing turned into 5 that year, and then 150 the next year. And then we did over 250 shows a year for 8 years, and built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment, to this
Still?
day. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I only share that because it was 3 years of hearing no. It was 3 years of even Alan Burke saying you're not the right fit for QVC. And so many of us get that opposition, and that's what we listen to, right? And it's
Yes.
easy, and it's like Jay-Z. Jay-Z said that famous quote, like he said, the genius thing we did was we didn't give up, right? And
Yes.
so many times it comes down to that, and also just figuring out how to believe that it's possible to succeed. It's just not happening yet. And one
Well,
more. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, no, no, go
Oh,
ahead, and then I'll
I
I'll
just
ask you
remembered
after. I'm gonna
something you said earlier about when we were talking about how our setbacks turn into setups, and like sometimes we
yeah,
can't see it at the time. And so, one more thing just to share is Alan Burke, who had said, no,
yeah.
you're not the right fit. After we launched on QVC, oh my gosh, he ended up becoming, I got to know him so well, and he became like one of our greatest champions, one of the best advisors we've ever had. And then he became one of my closest mentors, and he is to this day. And he is so freaking brilliant. It's the
biggest blessing. But anyways, he ended up retiring from QVC, and we ended up hiring him in a paid position on our advisory board. And I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, the guy that rejected me is now working for me. And I was like, listen, like, no one can tell you you're not the right fit. Like, no one can, right? And the last thing I'll say about that, and this is important too, because even though all the years of no's hurt, Sephora rejecting me hurt, Alan Burke saying you're not the right fit hurt. Like, sometimes those painful no's are like actually like serendipitous grace, like in our
Yeah.
favor, right? Wrapped in this like package labeled painful rejection. Because what I later learned was Alan Burke was right all along. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And had he said yes to us when I wanted him to, we would have failed, because we did not have the infrastructure you need to support the back end of the business for an account like QVC. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And similarly, we didn't have the right team to be able to support an Ulta or a Sephora yet in terms of education across the country. Like, we built up a team of over 1,000 employees, but during the years when we were getting told no from everybody, I didn't know what I didn't know. And thank goodness we didn't get a yes sooner, because we would have failed and we may not have gotten another chance. And so, a lot of full circle moments, they're so hard to see when we're in them, but when we keep going, we get to that point where we have
Yeah.
those things happen.
Well, I was going to ask you, I was going to say, whatever happened to Alan Burke? Because why did he say, my question was, did he ever give you a reason why he said no? So did he tell you on that phone call when you spoke to him, why?
No, he just said, you're not the right fit for us. We reviewed your brand, our customers.
How did he know what your back end was? How would he know what your,
I think
right? So do you think he was just making that up because he felt silly that he said no to the?
He didn't know what our back end was. He just said no. I think that he thought our packaging wasn't ready and that we weren't ready, but he didn't know I think some people call it the universe. Other people call it divine orchestration. Other people call it God. I really believe the famous saying that things happen for us, not to us, right? So he didn't know what our operational infrastructure was. He just probably knew in his own gut to say no. You know what I mean? And that we weren't ready or whatever. And that's why I think, like, sometimes things don't make sense when they happen against us. But like, when we learn to trust ourselves and trust that things are divinely orchestrated, whether some people call it the universe, some people call it God. For me, faith's a big deal, but like that,
I know.
believe that,
Have you always been very religious, or did you kind of come to it more later on in life?
I was raised where my parents made me, keyword made, forced me to go to church every Sunday. And I never connected with it growing up. Like, I didn't whenever the pastors would give sermons, I literally couldn't connect with any of it. I would tune it out. I would scan the church pews for boys, cute boys, and I would just like count down the minutes, like hoping it would end. And, I always prayed and I always believed in God growing up. And then my journey was really different, of God doubt, a lot of God doubt. And what I mean by that is, like, I always wanted to see new cultures, new experiences, and new people who didn't look like me or pray like me or love like me. And I just wanted that so badly. And so I was always, that's why I worked so many jobs. I was like, I got to get out and I got to get somewhere else and experience new things. And I went to school, and then I ended up going to graduate school in New York City. And when I did that, I was, for the first time, really around so many people who had so many different faiths and a lot of people with no faith. And I was around so many science-based arguments on why God doesn't exist. And they all started to really make a lot of sense to me, right? People that believe, like, they don't believe in anything unless you can see it, prove it, touch it, for with faith is not required. And it really started impacting me.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima!
Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us
has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt